Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to work on starting the power plant contract and then finish the episode off with stocking the brick factory with some packaged sand. Welcome to the Wisconsin road trip. Let's get started. We're going to take the Dan with the fuel tanker add-on, purchase a generator trailer, and head over to the railway warehouse. There's a crafting zone there that we can use to craft the 8 fuel needed for this contract. Another alternative would be to go to the fuel warehouse on the east side of the map and load up the 8 fuel there. And I used to do it that way, but this is a lot easier and we don't have to travel all the way across the map to do it. So leaving the garage, we're going to head to the west and we'll just follow this road down. We'll go right past the gas station and take the back road into the railway station. I chose to use the Dan for this because it's a good heavy truck and it doesn't have any issue running around with a fuel tanker on it. I'm bringing the fuel tanker so we have additional reserves for crafting. The generator trailer comes with 1,500 liters already stocked in it, but it doesn't take long to go through that once you start crafting the materials you need. I believe it uses 100 liters for each fuel that you craft, so this will use up about 800 liters out of the generator trailer. We'll need to craft more materials when we start working on the paper factory contracts, so it's always a good idea to have some extra surplus. I'm going to take this back road in, going to the paper factory, because the alternative is to drive through that deep mud hole that's on the north side of this hill. And honestly, I don't even think the Dan would make it through there, even with mud tires installed. There isn't any winch points in there, so if you get stuck, that's pretty much the end of it, and you need to bring out another truck to pull you out, or recover. So we'll go in through the back way here, although we will go through that mud hole a couple times today with some of the other trucks that are a little bit more capable. You pretty much got to have a truck that has tall tires in order to get through there because it sinks down quite a bit, and you end up getting high centered on the mud. So we'll just play it safe with the Dan, and then we don't have to worry about it. Coming into the railway station here, rather than turning straight over to the crafting zone, I'm going to go around to the right. That way I can get positioned a little bit better once I get into the generator spot. There is a deep mud hole over here by these stumps, so if you go in this way, make sure you stick close to the fence. If you drive out there, you're going to end up winching yourself back out. Then we'll just knock the fence down and go right around these boxes, and you can see the generator spot right there. I'll just pull up into it, then we'll get the trailer turned on, and we can leave this here for now. Let's head back to the garage and grab the twin steer. I did recover this from Greenwoods River and bring it over here. So if you're playing hard mode, you might choose to use a different vehicle so you don't have to do that, or you could just drive it all the way over here. But that is one of the perks of playing on the normal mode, being able to move your trucks around without any penalty. Heading back out of the garage, the first thing we're going to do is grab 2 metal beams. And straight down the hill to the south here, there's some metal framing that we can deconstruct. So if we just hang a left off the road, we can go right down through this little valley. There are some really big rocks in here, so make sure you don't get the truck high centered on them. And then straight ahead, you can drive through the trees. You can actually go left or right here. I ended up going right, but left will take you a little bit straighter in there. Either way is fine. And we'll get loaded up with these beams. We're going to turn around after this and head back out towards the west. The twin steer is kind of a long truck to be trying to get turned around in here, but if you just plan your route, you should be fine. You do want to be careful when you're running over some of these metal barrels, though, that they don't blow out your suspension. They can be nasty. Okay, heading back out of here to the west, there's a couple of mud holes we got to drive through, but this truck doesn't really worry about them. It does have the 63-inch mud tires installed, and having that additional frame length kind of helps quite a bit too, because it seems like you can make it about halfway out through the mud puddle before your back tires leave solid ground. Let's turn off and head back up to the road. We'll go get these delivered at the power plant. The power plant is located straight north of the gas station. Once we have this contract complete, this will unlock 2 crafting zones on the map. One of them is the steel factory, where you can convert metal beams into metal rolls, and the other one is the brick crafting factory, where it requires 1 package sand and 1 cement to craft a brick. I like to get this contract done right away because it opens up those crafting zones to be used as storage zones, just like we did in Yukon. And after we get done with this contract, we're going to be utilizing the brick storage zone to put some materials in there. So in my opinion, this is a good one to get done right away. We can turn off to the right and head up into the parking lot here. We'll get these delivered. Then we're going to turn around and head over to the railway warehouse where we can find 2 cargo containers. Since we're utilizing a truck that is very capable in mud, we might as well take that deep water crossing and just see how it performs. I did advise in episode 1 to avoid that at all costs, and I'm still sticking to that advice. But there are a few trucks that can make it through there proficiently. This is one of them. Although if you've driven through there a couple of times, it does get tore up pretty bad, and even this truck might get stuck. But just for the sake of experiencing it at least once on the series, we're going to give it a shot. I usually try to stick close to the cliff side on the left here because it definitely is a little easier to get through on this side. If you go out to the right, you can see there's some rocks sticking up, and you'd think that it would probably be easier to drive through there because it's a little bit more shallow, but it's actually not. I think they coated the mud to be deeper on that side, and whenever I try to go through over there, I usually end up getting beached and stuck out there, even with the more OP trucks. But when you get close to the other side, there are some big rocks underneath the water, so you want to make sure you're not too close to the shoreline because you'll get stuck on those too. We made it out of there. Let's head up to the warehouse and we'll get loaded up with those 2 cargo containers. And then leaving here, I'm just going to drive around the parking lot over by the generator trailer, and we'll just take the same way out that we came in with the Dan. But like I said before, make sure you don't drive out into that mud pit there because it's real difficult to get through, and it'll slow you way down even if you do get through there. So watching out for the stumps, I'm going to cut back over to the road, and then we'll take that path back out of here, the same one we just came in on. The alternative would be to take the same road out that we came in with the Dan. Although it is a little bit longer, it's definitely a lot safer. So if you don't want to take the risk of going this way, then that's the route you should take. Just make sure you keep it in low and not low plus when you're going through here, because low plus will just dig you straight down. It's definitely going a little bit slower than it did coming through here the first time. Having this additional weight and also the fact that we tore it up once already, you can pretty much only get away with it about 2 or 3 times before it gets to be too bad to go through there. But we made it through, and we'll continue up the road and head over to the power plant. This is not a very big contract, and it doesn't take long at all to get it complete. The twin steer works good for this because of the 4-slot cargo capacity, and it kind of makes short work of it. This will be the only contract that we work on this episode, but once we have it complete, we're going to spend a little bit of time with the Paystar getting prepared for some of the later episodes. There's some work that we can do on the south end of the map that'll cut down on the amount of work we need to do later on. Alright, we're back. Let's get these turned in. We'll get turned around and we're going to head back over to that railway warehouse and get loaded up with 2 consumables. This time I'm going to take a different route just so we don't tear it up even further through there and run the risk of getting stuck. So when we leave here, we'll just take a right and head off to the north, and we'll follow the lake all the way around. I believe we've gone this way before too, and there's really only one spot through here that gets kind of muddy. It's right at the beginning, but at least in this spot, if you do get stuck, you have some winch points to get out. It's not really an issue for this truck though. Now we can just follow the shoreline around. This second mud hole we have to drive through is not bad at all. Personally, I've found that if you stay out towards the lake a little bit closer, it's actually a little easier to get through here. There's some rocks and stuff out here that'll keep you from sinking all the way down. But even if you follow the road, you'll be fine. Now we can cut back up to the tracks, and we'll just follow them all the way over to the warehouse. The only thing you really got to watch out for when you're taking this path is just making sure you don't blow out your suspension. It seems like the little bushes and stuff that you drive over can really destroy your truck quickly if you're not paying attention, or if you're going too fast. So just ease off the throttle and pick your route wisely. There's a couple ways you can get through these stumps. You can turn off here, or you can go through where we came out on the last trip. I usually try to take the first path in, and then now that we're back, we'll get loaded up with those 2 consumables. There's 4 of them in the warehouse here, but we only need 2. A lot of this stuff is going to end up getting shuffled over to the paper factory once we get started on those contracts. There's 3 contracts to complete the paper factory, and all 3 of them have large cargo requirements. Some of the cargo will be in the 2 warehouses located over here, and some of it we'll be able to craft where we left the Dan. But the remaining materials are going to be the metal rolls and bricks that we'll either need to find around the map at different locations or craft them in the crafting zones. Let's head back the same way we came over here. We'll just follow the tracks and turn off and go right down by the lake again, and we'll follow the edge of the shoreline all the way around to the power plant. We've made some good progress in the game so far. We've got Greenwoods River all the way complete, except for a couple of contracts at the end and 1 task that we need to finish. But we're holding off on that task so we can utilize the fuel that's in that tanker truck, and the final contracts for the entire region will be over there as well. Doing work in Black Badger Lake is a little bit more off-road based than it was in the other map, and I've actually been kind of looking forward to getting back over here and pulling these trucks out and working with them again. Once we get all of this work done, we're going to get focused on doing the logging that's in this region, which is kind of a handful in and of itself. There will be different requirements for the contracts. Some of them require long logs, some of them medium, and pretty much most all of them require some wooden planks to be delivered as well. So I'm going to take a little different approach than we normally do when I get started working on those. We made it back, we got these delivered. Now we can just park the twin steer off to the side and jump into the collab, we're going to head over to the railway station and craft 8 fuel. I'm going to double check and make sure the active suspension is up on this truck, and it was. And then leaving here, since it's such a tight corner to get onto that bridge with this trailer, I'm going to actually just drive around it and go through the water. The collab has a snorkel all the way up on the roof of the truck, and it's not too deep for it, so we'll be fine. This thing is kind of a monster. Might as well enjoy it while we're using it. Now we'll just take this path back over to the highway, then we'll get up there and cross the bridge and head back over to the railway station. It feels kind of good to get back in the collab after we've left it parked over here for a while, since episode 3 I guess it was. This truck is a lot of fun to pull the 8-slot trailer around with because it just doesn't care. It'll pretty much drive through anything, and it keeps the legs off the ground high enough to where you can go pretty much anywhere. And even if you do get the legs stuck on the ground, the truck itself has enough weight to usually be able to yank it over, usually anyway. And straight ahead there is where we'll be reconstructing the paper factory. It doesn't look like much right now, but by the time you finish all 3 contracts, the place gets built up pretty good, and it looks like a pretty interesting industrial zone. There's some really good cutscenes with those contracts too, just like there were in the Big Salmon Peak map in Yukon, when we recreated that factory up on top of the mountain. It's always nice to have good cutscenes when you finish a contract. I wish there were more cutscenes in the game. There's definitely been a lot of missed opportunities where you can tell they could have spent the extra time implementing them. But I also understand how deadlines work, and it's likely that they just didn't have the time to work on them. Either way, I'm not going to complain too much because I still love the game. After we cross that little river, all we got to do now is just drive straight up over the hill, and we'll be over there. It's not very often that the collab will power out when pulling this trailer, but sometimes it can happen. Usually if that does happen, you can just use low gear and it will get it moving again. This spot up here on the top of the hill is where I usually get the trailer legs stuck on the ground when I'm using some of the other trucks. So the fact that this thing made it over it without any issue is a pretty good indication of the height of the saddle on it. But we're back over here. I'm just going to turn off and follow the tracks into the warehouse area. In my experience, this tends to be the easiest way to get in here with this 8-slot trailer. It seems like you always have to be 2 steps ahead when you're pulling this trailer around. Alright, we're here. Let's get these 8 fuel crafted. And that used up 800 liters, so now there's 700 remaining in the trailer. And that's a pretty good example of why it's always a good idea to bring that fuel tanker truck with when you're using a generator trailer. Let's get turned around and back out of here. I'm not going to try to take the back way out by going through the fence. This trailer is just too long, and I don't want to get it hung up on any of those stumps in there. So we'll just back the trailer off to the right, and then we can cross the tracks and head out of here. We're going to take the deep water hole. We might be pushing our luck this time after we've gone through there twice with the twin steer, but I kind of want to just see how well this truck does through there, pulling a fully loaded trailer. If you didn't want to take this risk, I would advise probably just following the shoreline around like we did with the twin steer on the last trip. And it's definitely slowing down, although it is still doing a pretty good job. I don't think it would be wise to go through here again though. I think we've hit our limit with how bad we can tear it up and still make it through. And right at the end here, it really slowed down. It's just barely crawling through there now. But luckily we made it out. I guess if we would have gotten stuck, we could have always grabbed the twin steer and used that to pull it out. Okay, let's head up the road. The drop-off isn't far away now. We're almost complete with this contract. I do try to cut my corners short when I'm using this trailer. I don't want to have to try to pull it around that power line pole and get hung up on it. Seems like it's always a good idea to cut them short if you have the option to. And now we're rolling into the yard. Probably could have cut that corner short too. There was plenty of room to get around that pole, so either way works fine. Let's get these delivered, and starting the power plant is now complete. You can see on the reward list that there's a couple new crafting zones that were unlocked. From here, we're going to jump into the Paystar 5600 twin steer, and we'll get started doing some of that work I was talking about earlier. We can just drop the service trailer here, and we're going to head back into Greenwoods River. We need to go pick up that red sideboard trailer and also the generator. So if you remember on the last episode, we left them just inside the gateway here, over by the warehouse. First thing we're going to do is load up that sideboard trailer onto the bed of this truck. If you weren't here for the last episode, where I went through showing how to get this thing loaded using the mini crane, we're going to go through it again real quick. You can see how the truck is kind of leaning to the side. and that had me a little bit concerned. So I tried to pull it down the road a little ways to get leveled out a little better. But looking back on it, I probably should have gone to a better spot because the truck was still leaning a little bit and it did give me some issues. So we're just going to put the crane up in the air, making sure that it's not sticking out past the back of the flatbed. Then after attaching it to the trailer, we'll back out of the crane mode and just use the winch to pull it up. And then once you get the back tires up high enough, you can go back into crane mode to try and straighten it out. But as you can see, the trailer is trying to roll downhill and it started giving me issues trying to get it loaded on straight. This is where it's a good idea to have your truck leveled out better before you try to do this. I did eventually get it on there, it just took a little extra time. And if you need to, you can always use the winch points on the side of your truck to try to move the trailer around sideways. That seemed to work just fine. And as you can see, it did straighten it out. We'll get it packed and then we'll head down the road a little bit further. That generator isn't too far away. Let's go get it. It probably would have made my life a little easier had I not parked the GMC right in the middle of that road. This will be the second and third time now that I've had to drive around it. But you can see here's the generator. Let's get turned around and we'll use the winch to straighten it out before we hook up to it. So I'm just going to pull it a little ways to get it turned in the right direction. Then we can get it attached and we'll drive back around the GMC. This Western Star here to the right is what we've been utilizing for fuel reserves while we've been working down here. That is the last task that we have to complete on this map, and we will turn it in later on, but we don't have a need for the 10 metal rolls yet that are in the warehouse that it unlocks, so I'd rather just keep using the fuel if possible. Let's run this up the road and we'll stage it off to the side here. Then we can get the GMC and we'll pull that Western Star truck up here to the end. We're not going to turn it in, we're just going to get it staged and use the fuel out of it to refill the Paystar. I was kind of having a hard time getting up this hill with the GMC until I turned the white Western Star on and let it drive itself a little bit. That definitely helped. Okay, now when you're pulling up here, just make sure you don't accidentally drive it into the box. So try to stay far enough away from it where that doesn't happen. And there's a tree stump right there. Watch out for that. But I'm just going to pull it up here and shut the engine off and leave it parked. Let's jump back into the Paystar. We'll get refueled quick. Looks like there's a little over 900 liters remaining in there. And I believe the fuel tank on the truck itself also is full. So there should be approximately 1,200 liters available. Let's head back over to Black Badger Lake. We need to pull this generator down into the quarry and craft some packaged sand. There's a couple routes you can take to get to the quarry. For instance, you could have turned left right after we entered the gateway, and there's a back road that goes over there. That route does have some pretty bad rocks on it, so I chose to go the long way. However, there is a place up here where we can turn off and take a little bit shorter route over to the quarry, instead of going all the way through the brick factory. I'll show you where that's at. Just like before, you kind of want to try to stay to the side when you're going around these mud puddles so it doesn't slow you down too much. Then we can turn off right by this power line pole and head up into the grass. There's actually a road up in here that we can take that'll come out right by the quarry entrance. So we're directly behind the brick factory right now. Okay, we made it over here to the quarry. Now we just got to get down into the bottom. If you follow the road, you're going to have to go all the way around, and it is kind of a long trip. There's nothing wrong with it. It's definitely the safer of the two routes. But you can also turn off right here at the beginning and just go straight down the hill. This is the way that I pretty much always go with most of my trucks. But when you get to the bottom, conveniently there's a building right in the way, so you do have to go around it. Either way would be fine, but I've found that the left side tends to be a little bit easier for me. And then the generator spot is on the other side. So what we'll do is just pull up ahead of it, and then we can detach from the generator trailer, and we'll just back it up in there. I'm not even going to mess around trying to back this trailer up with it connected to the hitch. Even though it's possible, it's just a pain in the butt. But if we connect our winch to the side of it, we should be able to back it straight in there. You actually have quite a bit of control over it doing it this way. Okay, now that we have it in the spot, all we got to do is get it turned on so we can utilize it for crafting. Just make sure you have it all the way in the square. Let's pull up here to the side and we'll get this red trailer unloaded. I am planning on driving out of here the same way we came in, so I want the tongue of the trailer facing that building. Although I did have some issues getting out of here once I was fully loaded, so if you'd rather take the easier route, then drop this trailer off facing the other direction and you can follow the road out. Let's get turned around, we'll back up and connect to it, and we can load up our truck and trailer. We need to craft 8 packaged sand. We could always craft more, but there's only 8 cement in the warehouse that's located close by here that we can use for crafting bricks. So because of that fact, I'm only going to craft 8 packaged sand. Now we can load up the truck and trailer, that's 5 of them. We have 3 left to haul. I did choose to overload this and put 3 extra onto the bed of the truck, but I'm just going to say this. We are going to be coming back down here to grab that generator trailer, and it probably would have been wiser to just grab the 3 extra packaged sand on the second trip through here. This truck doesn't have any issue with overloading like this, but it was overweight trying to get back out of here, and it struggled quite a bit going up the hill because of it. So if I was going to do this again, I would just leave these additional 3 in the warehouse and load them up on my second trip through here. Too late for me now though. I have done it this way before and I didn't have any issues getting out, but for some reason on this trip, the truck really struggled. I'm not entirely sure why, but just know that it's a possibility that it'll happen to you too. So I tried turning my all-wheel drive off just to keep additional power to the rear wheels, but for some reason the truck powered out completely once I turned the all-wheel drive off and it just rolled back down the hill, which is definitely not normal behavior. Usually it gets additional power when I turn the all-wheel drive off, but in this situation it was the opposite. Something was funky, so I just tried to work with whatever it was doing. I couldn't get it moving again, so I dropped the trailer and just drove up the hill as far as I could, and then used the winch to pull it up. Like I said, this is not the typical experience that I have doing this. Usually I can cruise right up here without any problem, even overloaded, but for some reason the truck was just not acting normal. We got it up to the first sledge, and I tried connecting to it and seeing if I could drive it out of here. I thought maybe the mini crane was affecting it somehow, so I restored that, and I just couldn't even get it moving. So I decided to drop the trailer again and drive up to the top and then use the winch to pull it the rest of the way. But then once I got up here to winch to it, I was just out of reach, so I had to back up a couple times. There, we got it. Let's get it yanked up the hill and then we'll connect to it and drive out of here. So like I said, there was a couple different things we could have done differently. We could have just taken the road out of here and it would have probably gone a lot smoother than this. Or we could have just left the 3 extra sand in the warehouse and loaded them up on the second trip through here. To be honest with you, I wasn't thinking about the fact that I was coming down here again, and that's why I chose to overload them in the first place. But you know how it is, hindsight is always 20/20, right? Making this turn can be a little bit of a pain also, just because of how long this truck is. But after multiple points of turning, I managed to get out of there. The headache is over, let's head up to the warehouse. We're going to turn these into the storage that we just opened up by completing that last contract. So this time we'll follow the main road out of here instead of turning back down the one that we came in on. And then once you get up here a little ways, you're going to see a trail going off to the right that goes around these trees. That's the path that we're going to take. It comes out right by the brick crafting factory, so not a very long trip at all. We made it over here, let's get the bottom 5 turned in, then we'll repack and turn in the top 3. So now we have 8 of them in there. As you can see, the fuel is getting pretty low on this truck, and since we're not using the generator for crafting anymore, we're basically going to repurpose it as a fuel trailer. So let's head back down there and retrieve it, and we'll bring it back up here to the brick factory. It doesn't hold quite as much fuel as a standard fuel trailer, but it should be plenty for what we need to do on this corner of the map. Unfortunately, there isn't any other way to get fuel over here, short of bringing a fuel truck or a fuel trailer from the trailer store, so we might as well use the generator for it since we have it here. Once again, I'm going to take the same path going in there, going straight down the hill. Being unloaded this time, we shouldn't have near as much trouble coming back out. Just watch your corner when you're going down in there. You don't want it to tip you over right here at the top. This truck feels really nimble now after driving out of here with those 8 packaged sand. I'm going to get turned around before I even grab onto that trailer. Then we'll just use the winch to pull it out. We should be safe now with our fuel situation since we have fuel in there to get refilled. Alright, now driving back out of here, I'm just going to put it in high and see how far I can make it. And we're having quite a different experience than we did on the last trip. The Paystar is just climbing right out of here. Made it the entire way until I got to the top. But be careful you don't tip over trying to make this last corner. This truck is a lot of fun to drive. There was a question on the last episode asking why I wasn't using the OHD1 tires for this truck, and they are a really good option. I do actually use them quite a bit, but the main reason why I chose to use the mud tires was because I wanted to let the tires slip a little bit going up some of these steeper inclines, like that Quarry hill for instance, and the OHD ones have a really good off-road rating, almost too good for this truck because it can start to power out when you have 10 wheels on the ground that have that much grip. So I do go back and forth between the OHD ones and these JAT mud tires. Didn't quite make it all the way there. Let's get refueled real quick and then we'll pull up the rest of the way. And I did install the JAT tires that had the highest off-road rating to try to get a little bit better grip in those situations. I find these to be a decent balance in certain applications. So this is the last thing that we'll be doing on this episode. I feel pretty good now that we have a fuel reserve over here at the brick crafting area. This is a good spot for it. We'll be coming through here with some of the other trucks too later on, and it's nice to know that there's some fuel in the area that we can refill with. From here we're going to get started working on the logging contracts, but we're going to save that for the next one. So make sure you come back and check it out. It's going to be interesting to say the least. So we'll see you then. Appreciate you being here, and thanks for watching everybody.